2,977 people died on September the 11th, 2001, and behind each victim is an important story. The 9/11 Tribute Center in New York City is a project designated and designed to bring each of those stories to life forever.
And Brian toured that center with a very special guide.
Yeah, Joe Connor is somebody who's very familiar to the Fox and Friends audience. He saw the planes hit the World Trade Center on 9/11. His cousin, Steve Schlag, died that day. Now, 15 years after the terrorist attack that brought down the Twin Towers, he's working for the 9/11 Tribute Center to share his story and tell others and help them understand and remember what happened 15 years ago. We took that tour.
When I saw the planes hit out my window, I never dreamed that they might fall.
Even though it's been 15 years since 9/11, 2001, there's a group of people making sure we never forget. Joe Connor is one of these people. Joe, thanks so much. Can you orientate me into how it was before the attacks?
If you want to look at this picture here, you can see the North Tower, and you know because it had the antenna on top. And the North Tower now is outlined over here. The South Tower is next to it, which is right over here. And here's the Marriott Hotel, which would have been right in this area. A week after 9/11, when we came back down to work, this is what you saw. And the amazing 110-story towers were a few stories of rubble.
Now, to attribute that, the footprints are outlined and they're ringed with the names of those who lost their lives.
And they're put in meaningful adjacency, meaning that the people who knew each other, their names are next to each other.
So there's also something else. 343 firefighters lost their lives.
That's correct.
And there's something very special for them. So, Joe, this is the firefighter memorial.
Yep.
343 lost their lives that day. This depicts
the timeline of events when the planes first hit the Trade Center over here, to the firemen coming, getting their hoses and trying to put out the fire. Their faces are really without detail because it could be anybody. Their helmets don't have their fire company on it because it could be anybody. It's a tribute to all firemen, not just the ones who lost their lives that day.
But the names of every firefighter, 343, are at the bottom. So, Joe, where are we now?
We're in the 9/11 Tribute Center. What I love about volunteering at the Tribute Center is that we can talk about the individuals, their lives. Everyone had a story, and everyone had a family, and everyone had a loss that way. And I think it's much more impactful for people who visit here.
Joe, it seems like there's not an inch here that doesn't mean anything. Even from the floor we're standing on has the layout of the streets.
It's a grid of the city. We think about it as thousands of people dying. Everyone had something that was important to them. You think it's only a holster or only a coat, but it was incredibly important to the families. Now, this is special here, I think.
Lee Ielpi, this was his brainchild to this tribute center,
This tribute center was founded by Lee in 2006, and this was his son's uniform and his helmet, which meant everything to the firemen. And to think that his son was found and his equipment like this, and you can see how it literally was torn off his back. That is to me about the most touching thing that I've seen in this museum.
So here's the main room on the first floor.
Yes.
Right. What are we seeing?
We're seeing about 1,800 pictures of loved ones. We do happen to have my cousin Steve's picture, Steve Schlag, right here. He was 41 at the time, 3 kids. Like I said, everyone has a story. Tim Finnerty, a friend of ours, is over here on number 10. And
let's see Tim. And he married my wife's cousin.
Is that right?
That's true.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I
you know
knew Tim
him?
well. Yeah.
What a great guy. You know, that was the thing, right?
So you didn't know that he knew Tim?
So we did not know. Tim Finnerty's my wife's dad. Teresa's my wife's cousin. Tim married, and he was over the house all the time. He was at Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
So he was one of the people that we helped to get the DNA for, as hopefully he would survive, and unfortunately, sadly, he didn't. So for Joe Connor to see 2,977 pictures and said, here's my cousin, oh, by the way, and here's Tim Finnerty, who I rode to work all the time with.
Yeah.
The odds of that
Wait a
happening.
minute, and
wow.
You knew her.
And that's my cousin. Teresa's my wife's cousin, and Tim is just this great guy, basketball player.
How's Teresa
who
doing
coached
now?
kids. She's doing great. She's got She's got kids of her own and has moved on, but not forgotten.
The Tribute Center, a lot of people go to the museum, but they don't know about the Tribute Center, and now you do know about it.
Walk in, it's unbelievable, it's quite moving, and believe it or not, it looks like just pictures up there, but they're all chronicles so you can find your loved ones.
Everyone's got a story.
Thank you, Brian.
All right.